Hey guys, sorry that I have not been around in the last 3 weeks, but I have an excuse. I was on vacation on Bora Bora So I was all happy, and when I got home, I got COVID for the 3rd time, even after 2 vaccines. Remember, say no to vaccines, ever. After 8 days, I was feeling better, but then my wife got a really bad flu flying down from New York, and then she was in bed for like 10 days. Then I had to get back to work. I build websites like Shopify, WordPress, or all that kind of stuff, but I still do this. So let's get going today. Then we're going to talk about the missing GTR. For the last 7 years, I have made it my hobby to determine the fate of the Fast and Furious cars. Most of them. This story you're gonna love, and it's not done yet. That story is coming up right after the break. Don't forget that I'm raffling off the number 1.8 GTR made by Phantom. It's an exact copy of my movie car in Too Fast, Too Furious. I have the only one that's completely put together. It's the first one off the production line. It's sitting upstairs in my office. $50 gets you a chance to own this car. I have a spreadsheet. You have 100 entries, and we're gonna do the ball thing. If your number is picked, you get it, and you only paid $50. If you buy the kit piece by piece by piece, it's gonna be $2,000. So $50 gets you a chance. You can buy multiple slots. And if you wanna get with me, hit me with a DM and I'll tell you how to do it, okay? So I want to talk about the lost GTR from the second movie. This was a mystery for a long time, between 2002 to 2010. I know the car went to the Volo Museum about sometime around 2008 or so. Remember though, in Too Fast, Too Furious, the Skylines were 100% real GTRs, okay? Remember that. Yes, it was a real GTR. For almost a decade, many of these cars seemed to disappear. Why? But later I realized what happened. Because the year after the first movie came out, the world fell into a depression. It was called the dot-com bubble. All of a sudden, buyers were not willing to buy one of these cars from the Fast and Furious movie. At that time, that movie was not considered a serious car movie. A few years later, car museums started to buy these cars from the first 2 Fast and Furious movies. So they started surfacing. But that was short-lived. In 2008, this time it was the mortgage crash, and it was global, and that was horrible. But after the death of Paul Walker, I got serious. After Paul Walker died, things changed. Speculators started buying up the Fast and Furious movie cars. And I said, this is the time they're going to be coming out. So I found many of these cars. Collectors around the world helped me locate and ascertain their condition. Collectors like Chrome Cars in Germany who locate, buy, and restore these cars, they started coming out. In 2018, I went to Sweden. Suddenly, I found several movie cars over there. I was, what? How they came here, man? That's crazy. I was surprised to find several movie cars hiding in Scandinavia. I never suspected that some of those cars would find themselves overseas in Europe. And over the years, they were sold, some domestically and some overseas. I was focusing on the cars that Paul or Vin were driving in the movies because those cars are going to get the best money. I knew that Universal had 2 of the GTRs. The jump car was still in the USA, but still today, I don't know where that jump car is. I know that the car is still in the USA. My GTR was in Tennessee, now it's in New Jersey. That left one of the 2 Fast and Furious GTRs missing. This was the car that Paul was driving when he hit the parking meter in Too Fast, Too Furious, and that car disappeared. It became the lost GTR from the second movie. This was a mystery for a long time. I did know later on, after the fact, that the car went to Volo Museum. Then the trail went cold, literally. The next time I saw it, it was being loaded into a house in Norway. It was picked up like a crane. They ripped off the roof and it put it down to keep the GTR out of the snow. He also bought one of the Tyrese clips. In 2023-ish, after Fast 4 Skyline went to Bonham's auction in Belgium, thanks to my friend Ariane, the new owner of my old Supra, and the guys at Chrome Cars in Germany invited me to go to Norway to examine the Norway GTR. So that was a crazy day. We flew to Frankfurt and then another plane to Oslo. So I got to see the Paul Walker Fast 4 in the year before. That was a real GTR. It was the only GTR in Fast 4. And because Paul Walker drove that car, it sold just a shade under $1.4 million USD. So that car was in great shape, not like this car we're talking about now. Emboldened by the high final bid of the Fast 4 GTR, the owner of the Parking Meteor GTR decided to sell his 2 Fast and Furious GTR. Not long later, the owner reached out to me online. He sent me about a dozen photos, and the photos, it looked like the car was in good shape. I asked him about his price, blah, 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 blah. He was looking for $2 million, and I went, what? What the f? And looking at the pictures, it really seemed to be in good shape. The inside of the car was pretty good, but the rest of the car, the seller asked me to introduce him to some possible buyers. I suggested a few movie car collectors, but those suggested were not in the market for such a car. Perhaps they thought that the car wasn't worth that price. A few more months passed with no interest. The seller decided to take the car to Bonham's in Europe. But there was another problem. Since Norway is no longer part of the European Union, you can't just drive into Europe without a lot of paperwork these days. So he couldn't get the car to Bonham for the auction. And I think that was in May of 2023. In October, the guys at Chrome Cars flew me to Frankfurt go to see the car in person. When I say barn find, I swear to God, that is an actual barn. The engine had a dead cylinder. There was front damage from the parking meter collision. The gas tank was ripped out of the car by the production team because they put in fuel cells in it. It's a stunt car. There's the front damage on the bumper, the front corner, the headlight, under the car, oil pan, and all that kind of shit. So that's going to take a lot to fix. The paint was The tires are done. The transmission, I didn't drive it myself because I didn't want to blow it up. It's surely not road legal in most countries in Europe, I'm sure. While we were there at the seller's home, we inspected it from the top to the bottom. And we talked privately, separately. Christian, he wanted a certain amount for this car. And he asked me, well, what do you think they would get at auction? In my eyes, and it's my opinion, when I looked at the car, to me, it was clear that this car will fall short of $2 million if you question my appraisal. And I'm pretty confident about my appraisal. Remember the orange Supra that went across the auction at Barrett Jackson? Craig Jackson pulled me on stage and he said, what do you think this car is going to sell for? And I said, $550. What did it sell for? Exactly $550, even with the fees. So I'm going to stick with my opinion, and that car is not going to get $2 million. In fact, I think a couple people in Europe said, we'll give you $750,000, maybe $1 million, and maybe 1.2. But that car is going to be about $100,000 to fix it up. But maybe you would just want to let it the way it is. If you ever go into a car museum, you see these cars from old movies, and they're crashed, and they left it that way because it's real. You know, that's just the way they left it. But he's still sitting on this car, and he's got 2 daughters waiting to get the money because they're not going to drive the car. So sell the car, get the money, do something good with the money. We shall see. The car still hasn't got over to Bonham's, so I don't know what's going to happen with this car, and it's crazy. He's just sitting there. I hope he gets a good number, but he's not going to get $2 million, and some sheik comes out of the woodwork and say, oh yes, my friend, I want that. Yeah, I want that. That's what's going to happen, okay? That's it for this week, but next week I have another great one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget about my raffle of my GTR from Farnham. If you have any questions, hit me back, okay? But just be polite. I work too, you know. All right, guys, take care. See you next week.